Hello, I want to welcome everybody today to our webinar on materiality. This is Tad Rudzinski, and I appreciate all of you attending today. We're going to run through this presentation, and the total time will be about 30 minutes, so we'll spend about 20 minutes going through slides, and that'll allow about 10 minutes for questions. And as always, when I do my webinars, I encourage everyone to ask questions, because that definitely makes it very specific to the audience, and also allows me to dive into more detail on some of the topics that you're most interested in. And if you haven't done it before, the way to ask questions is on your control panel on the GoToWebinar. There's a question box that will allow you to type the question in, and then I will answer them at the end. So just for anyone that needs PDH credit today, you will be getting PDH credit for taking this webinar. RCEP directly applies to anybody with a professional engineering license or registered surveyor or that kind of thing. And this course today is registered and is available for PDH credit. If you do need PDH credit, just email Caitlin, and she'll make sure you get the appropriate certificate for that. I also want to mention that this presentation is copyrighted and protected and cannot be utilized without any written permission from Tad Rudzinski. So just keep that in mind as we go through. And for those of you that are interested, this is being recorded, and this recording will be posted on YouTube, and you will have the ability to look at it from my website. So if you missed something and you want to come back to it, or you learned something in here that you want a colleague to learn about, you will definitely have access to this afterwards. So today we want to talk about understanding what materiality really is and the importance of using materiality to develop a long-term and effective sustainability program. And with everything I do, when I talk about sustainability, it's really about making sustainability part of the way an organization does everyday business. So what we find is when sustainability is a add-on topic, it's usually something that doesn't get much attention, doesn't really have the full support of the organization. So our ultimate goal is to make sustainability part of an organization's business strategy. It's just the way you do business, it's just the way you perform. And this has been very effective for us and helped us to really get a lot of organizations engaged and excited about what they're doing and not make it feel like one more program they have to worry about. So we're going to talk about various things. We're going to talk about some of the resources that will help you to establish your materiality matrix and establish your sustainability program. We're going to talk about things that are critical to the success of your organization, and we're going to focus in on different risks and opportunities, to ensure that you can utilize this for the long term to really enhance your business strategy. And ultimately what we do with materiality is use that as a means of establishing really effective goals that can be part of the sustainability and business strategy for the organization. I do want to mention that these webinars are a build-up to a seminar that I'll be doing on January 28th. So by taking these webinars and learning this information, it actually gets you ready for when you come to the seminar. We did a seminar in May this past year, and we had a great success with that. We had 30-some people attend, and we actually keep that very small, the seminars that we do, because they're very hands-on. We work together in them, and we do ongoing forums after the seminar. We actually just did one a couple weeks ago, and it was really exciting to hear that many of the people that had attended the seminar left there with a full action plan that they were implementing immediately at their place of business, and they were already reaping results. There was examples of cost savings and improved employee engagement and all kinds of great things going on. So keep this in mind, and for any of you that are doing budgeting, now is the time to get this budgeted. For any information on that, you can find it on my website or contact Caitlin. So whenever we do work on sustainability, we follow these key steps. For those of you that have been on my webinars in the past, These are the steps that we routinely talk about and are really the guiding principle for establishing an effective sustainability program. And we always start with some type of management commitment, always looking for the formation of a sustainability team. Now, I do realize that probably some of you on the line today are maybe a one person who's trying to, integrate sustainability into your organization. Ultimately, what you want to move to is bringing more people into the fold and helping you out to really get that done. It's very critical that you're educating your team, and when I say team, I really mean not just the people that are working on sustainability with you initially or on the long-term basis, but also getting the management team on board. Next thing we do is collect data and benchmark operations, and that was the webinar we did last month where we talked about benchmarking of operations and the importance of that. That is really a critical aspect. It's all about understanding your organization's impacts from an environmental, economic, and social perspective. So really understanding how you are connected to society, connected to the environment, and connected to your stakeholders like your employees. Very important to understand that, and benchmarking is critical. So if you'd missed that webinar, that was recorded and it is available on the website. So today we're going to be talking about conducting sustainability/materiality assessments. And these two items go in hand in hand. Sustainability assessments are a very valuable aspect of all the work we do, and it's really critical for us to fine-tune our benchmarking. It's really critical for us to understand operations, and it's also really critical for you as the person who's developing your materiality matrix to understand what's critical to your operations, and that sustainability assessment is really valuable for that. So when we think about materiality, this is a word that's not that old. The term sustainability has been around for quite a while now, and in fact, some people are saying, "Oh, well, everybody's sustainable these days." It's kind of losing its punch, and that's why I think it's so critical to really integrate sustainability into your business strategy. But really, what materiality really is, it's what really drives your business, what makes your organization tick, what ensures your long-term viability, and the long-term success of your organization. And as always, an organization can be a small business, it could be a really large company, it can be a nonprofit, it could be a for-profit, it could be a school or university. So there's a lot of different things to consider when you're thinking about materiality, but really, we're always thinking about the triple bottom line. We're thinking about what are the impacts of or the importance aspects that could affect our economics or profit, could affect our environmental connections or the planet, or can be connected very closely to our community connections or the social aspects or what we call people. So as you see here, we have basically this nice diagram of the triple bottom line. And ideally, when you're doing materiality, you're going to be looking at all three of these things. And you really want to get these things working well together, as you can see by the interconnected links here. When we do get things running really well, ultimately you're going to be in this position here where your organization's on the path to sustainability, becoming a greener organization, becoming a more robust and viable business, whatever your goals are, with minimizing impact to the environment, being recognized as a great place to work or great company to do business with, or recognized by the communities that you're connected to, and hopefully you're making really good money, you're making profit, whether you're, like I said, whether you're a for-profit or nonprofit. This economic aspect is really critical. None of us can function if we're not making money, and that's a really key aspect here. So ideally, we want to get all three of these things working together, and we want to be thinking about all three of these things when we're doing our materiality analysis. So when we think about materiality, some things you can ask yourself, if you're a company that's manufacturing something, you can say what resources are really important to your organization. Think about it. If you're a company that's heavily reliant on petroleum products, maybe certain chemicals, those things are going to be very critical. And if we think about the long term, you know, maybe oil's $100 a barrel right now, but what happens in the future if it goes up to $500 a barrel or $200 a barrel? How would that impact the long-term sustainability of your organization? And most manufacturing companies that we work with, this is a very important aspect to them because the success of their products and their business is usually dependent on some type of raw material or resource. The other thing you got to think about are there certain inputs that are vital to your business? Are there certain things that are critical to your stakeholder? We have to think here about people and materials and capital. And I show this image here of a balance because it really is a balance. You want to be looking at what's really important to your organization and what's important to your stakeholders. And this is really something, if you think about how sustainability has been done in the early years of organizations developing sustainability, they really just thought about what was important to their company. They weren't thinking a lot about what the customers cared about or the NGOs or their employees. And in reality, these things are really critical. So as we see sustainability programs evolving, there's much more focus on getting away from just the standard goals and really thinking about, all right, how do these goals affect our operation and how do these things really affect our stakeholders? Because stakeholders are always really critical to most organizations for their long-term viability and success. So I mentioned the term stakeholders, and for a company like mine, my employees are very important stakeholder group as well as our clients, extremely important to us. We're a relationship company, and for the companies we work with, it's really important that we have good relationships with them, long-term relationships. So we look at what's important to our clients, but also it's really important that we have a strong and really cutting-edge workforce. And the employees that work with us are critical to our operation. So those are two of our key stakeholders there. Now, depending on your organization, there may be others. For example, could be the communities that you're involved in. It could be government agencies. Some of you might be an organization that manufactures something or, has to worry about different regulatory issues. So government agencies could be very important to you. You could be a very well-recognized brand, and then the media is going to be really important to you. Or it could be an NGO, somebody like Greenpeace or World Wildlife Federation. And, we've worked with a lot of companies that have actually had interactions, been on the list of, say, a Greenpeace for something they were doing or a chemical they were using. And it was really critical to understand and focus on that because, brand is very important to an organization. And an NGO can be a critical stakeholder. We really encourage our customers to work closely with NGOs, especially if there's certain things they're doing, such as, if, we've worked with some packaging and paper companies in the past, and since some of their main raw materials come from forests, it's really important to stay connected to the right NGOs in regard to managing forests properly and doing the right thing, to minimize impact to indigenous cultures and different things like that. And then one we definitely don't want to forget is management. Even in my companies, which are small companies, the management team is really critical. So whether you're a company of one or a company of 30,000 people, the management team is really important, and you really want to be sure you're working with them as you're evaluating your stakeholder importance and understanding what's really critical to the organization. So when we think about establishing your materiality framework, this is the process that we typically follow. We're benchmarking operations, like I said, measuring, energy, water, waste, employee training, volunteerism, connections to community involvement, economic performance. All those things are getting measured. And then we're always doing sustainability assessments. Sometimes we're evaluating a manufacturing facility, sometimes we're evaluating office buildings, just really understanding how things are being done and how the business is running. And then another thing we always really like to look at for materiality, if you are a company that's selling something or providing services, it's really important to see what's going on out in the market and what's hot in the news, what's important, what people are focusing on. Oftentimes you can look at what's, the big stories in Green Biz or Sustainable Brands or these different groups that are publishing, information on a daily basis. So watching what's going on within the industry, seeing what your customers are requiring, evaluating the competitive landscape, these are all very important things to do when you're doing a materiality assessment. And that's really important. Like I said, in the early years and for many organizations when they first start out with sustainability, they're going to focus in on energy, water, waste reduction, maybe some community or social goals, and then usually some economic goals, but oftentimes they didn't really consider all these other aspects. So, for example, we do a lot of work with building products companies. So we're always watching what's the new trend in the building industry. Is it, LEED version 4, or is there some government regulations or a new executive order that's going to drive the need, for more sustainable products or better buildings? So that's just an example of watching out what's going on, from the market perspective. Next thing that's really critical as part of all of this is really conducting a stakeholder assessment. And like I mentioned, it could be, multiple stakeholders, but you really want to understand from the stakeholders, what's critical to them. Then the next thing would be developing a materiality matrix, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then after that, you're basically implementing your sustainability program, integrating it right into your business strategy, getting your employees engaged and other stakeholders, measuring and reporting, and continuing the process on and on. This is an example of a publicly available materiality matrix. This is the one that was published by Nestle. And you can see over here, they're looking at what's increasing concern to stakeholders as you go higher up the bars or the boxes here. More important to stakeholders, increasing or current impact on Nestle goes this way. So if you think about the way this works, there's a series of 9 boxes here, and as we follow this along, basically this is a list of all the different things that are critical to Nestle's operation, also critical to their stakeholders, and they've used this matrix methodology to basically bend these to help them decide what they're going to focus on as a business. Because imagine if you have all these things on your list, it's going to be impossible to focus on everyone. So the beauty of a materiality matrix, it helps you to prioritize what's important. It also gives you the ability to really set some criteria on deciding what's important. So if you go to Nestle, if you go to their sustainability report, you're going to see that these areas are heavily focused on within their sustainability report. And these are the key things that they're focused on, they're reporting on, and that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind as you're doing your own. This is a great tool to use, the matrix. And typically what we do, we start out with a list, just a list of all the different aspects and impacts and various things that are important to us. And I actually have an example of that coming up. And then we basically take that list and we work on binning it into the right box that, so we can decide what's important to us, what we're going to track and report as an organization. Since we're on the topic of reporting and tracking, it's really important also that, when you're doing really great work when it comes to establishing a really good corporate responsibility or sustainability program, that you definitely disclose that information in a manner that follows different international standards or principles. So for those of you that aren't familiar, these are different organizations that can give guidance on how to go about reporting your sustainability metrics in a manner that would be consistent on a global basis. So you can see here, there's the International Integrated Reporting Council, there's SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, and then GRI, which is Global Reporting Initiative. GRI is probably one that's most recognized for people in the United States. Many organizations follow the GRI when they do their reporting, and there's a whole series of different impacts or aspects that you should consider when you're doing a sustainability report. It's important for me to tell you also that when you're doing your sustainability assessment and your materiality analysis, using the GRI information is very helpful. You can run through their checklist and their list of different categories, and that helps you to think about what could be important to your organization. Then once you do that, that also helps you with your reporting, gives you the ability in an effective way to be able to communicate your data and your sustainability information to your company, to your stakeholders, and just to the world in general. So this is an example. This is a nice illustration. If you follow the Global Reporting Initiative version G4, they actually have some guidance in there to give you an idea of how to go about understanding what's important to you as an organization from a sustainability context. And again, using lists, looking at what's really critical to your business, a good way to do that. And if you notice here in this box, stakeholder inclusiveness pretty much follows all along through the process. So once you do your identification, where you're identifying what's critical to your economic, environmental, and social aspects of your company, then you run through your materiality. That's where you're prioritizing. You're setting up some kind of criteria to decide what's really material, what you're going to focus on in your reporting, what you're going to focus on in your company, what's important for the long-term viability of your organization. Then the next step is validation, where you're actually evaluating what you've selected, doing a completeness analysis, making sure management's on board. And then eventually this is the information that gets reported out to the world or to your employees or to whoever you report to when you're doing your sustainability reporting. And this next step about reviewing, after you do a report, your sustainability program never ends because, it's going to take many, many years, if at all possible, to become truly sustainable. You even look at companies like Interface. So you're going to do your reporting, and then you're going to keep that process going. You're going to go through it again and again. And that's something I like to point out. When you're doing your materiality matrix or doing your materiality assessment, you want to understand, that this is pretty much a thing that you keep focusing on, you keep adapting to and adjusting. So this is just an example of how we did our sustainability analysis and materiality matrix. Here were things that were important to our stakeholders. Again, our stakeholders really involved our customers and our employees because they're both really critical to us. And as we go up the arrow, the graph here, the higher we get, the more important. And then eventually what you'll see is these things in this dark green box were things that were really important to us as an organization, but also really important to the success of our stakeholders. So that would be our employees and customers. And what you'll see is we then use that to develop some of our goals. So, we went from, looking at becoming, essentially landfill free or waste free. That fits in our resource efficiency section. Reducing our carbon footprint's critical. But also really important to us is being connected to community and, volunteering and supporting the local economy. We have gardens here that we raise food, and we basically donate that to the local food bank, and all the employees participate in that. We also know it's important for us to have a fun and inspiring place to work. We're all about the employees that we have. We have great people here, and we want to keep them, here working, and we want them to be challenged. So in this business, you're always learning new things, you're always evolving, you're always developing cutting-edge services. And like I said, zero waste is an important goal of ours. Are we there yet? No. Are we close? Yes. There's challenges, and current system, current infrastructure challenge us. So one thing to think about when you're taking this information and designing it into your sustainability or corporate responsibility program, you want to be able to definitely connect your materiality information, the stuff I showed you in that dark green box, to maybe financial reporting, ongoing stakeholder engagement, and overall sustainability performance. Making sure you're setting these things up and you're measuring them, tracking them, and working forward on them. You definitely, if this is going to be successful, I work with a lot of companies that are struggling a bit yet because they're having difficulty really getting this into their culture or convincing management, and we've been working with them to get them excited about this and really be making this just part of the way they do business. Anything you can do to piggyback on existing programs, activities, or anything like that is going to be really important. Next thing is it's really an evolution. So that materiality matrix I just showed you for our company, that thing can always change. As we get new clients or as we hire new people or we see new innovations coming out in the marketplace, you're always making adjustments. You're always evaluating that. And I just want to also reiterate the importance of education. The more you educate people within your organization, the better off you're going to be, the better the employee engagement, the more exciting and fun it's going to be for the whole group. So we've gone through quite a number of things here. It's about only 5 or 6 minutes left. I'm not going to read these learning objectives, but we have covered the objectives. So any of you that are getting PDHs for this, we have covered them. I am going to take questions now. And with that, so I got a few questions here, and one says, how do you respond to corporations that are concerned about revealing information in their public reporting that could compromise their competitive position? Well, we definitely, this is often an issue, and what we typically see is many organizations do have trade secrets or proprietary information or different things like that, and there are ways that we can address that. For example, a lot of times we're doing things like life cycle assessments or establishing, reporting metrics for sustainability. And sometimes even around carbon, for example, the way that, carbon is tracked or CO2 emissions are tracked, that can be an issue. And there are ways you can show information about that without giving away too much. So we definitely evaluate that on a case-by-case basis and see what we can do. And we do try to get the organizations we work with to be as transparent as possible to release as much information as allowed by their legal and management teams. But, it is a balance. And there are ways to do it, but it is really, critical to, just also protect the company itself. So again, that balance I showed before on the one slide, it's a similar balance here. And some examples of that, would be definitely situations around carbon reporting where we've had companies do that. Another one is typically around suppliers, reporting information on suppliers and things like that. And there is a way to balance that, maybe just by, identifying locations where suppliers are utilized, or if a certain organization is working in quote unquote low-cost country, those kind of things could be covered. All right, so I have another question here. It says, is the materiality matrix in the G4 still relevant? Because I saw a few companies applying the G4 but leaving out the matrix. Well, the matrix doesn't always have to be reported. The matrix is really a tool, and for example, the Nestle group decided to show theirs, and I think what they wanted to show there is that they were being pretty comprehensive in the way they analyze things. But you're not required to show the matrix itself. The goal of materiality is to identify the things that are most critical to your organization. So the G4, you got to interpret that the right way. If you look at they're not going to require you to report the matrix. That matrix that I showed you, is typically an internal thing for us. I just showed it for this webinar to give people an idea how they go about it. If you come to our seminar on the 28th, we're going to actually run you through how to do these materiality matrices and materiality assessments in the matrix. The seminar is really hands-on that we do in January, and you'll get to do that. All right, I have time for one more question, it looks like. Let me just see here. All right. It said, what are key topics to address in the stakeholders questionnaires or discussion? So, the stakeholder questionnaires are going to vary by organization. And for us, we had specific questions to our clients, for example, on what was important to them as an organization for their long-term viability. So we were asking them questions about, what were the key aspects of them on an environmental perspective and an economic perspective. We also had a questionnaire that we ran through with our employees, and we actually did this in one of our company meetings. We were really just brainstorming about what was really key for them to want to work here, what was key for them for their success here. So really when you're developing these questionnaires, you have to really look at who your stakeholders are and identify, what's important to you. And I typically don't have organizations develop these questionnaires until after they've run through a brief analysis of, what's going to be critical to them and that kind of thing. So that is an important aspect. So it looks like we're getting close to being out of time. I do have on here resources for you. For those of you that are new to these webinars, you can go to my website and look at any different webinars that we've done over the past. I also have an ongoing blog with information that you can follow along and use to work at your own pace. And I do want to remind you about January 28th. Sign up now. We do have a reduced rate for the seminar up until December, and we do also offer group discounts, and we are limiting it to only maybe 30 or so people, so if you want to get in there because we have quite a few registered already. And I do want to just talk about our next webinars. I'm doing a webinar next week with Aaron Smith, the Director of Sustainable Building Solutions at ASSA ABLOY, and we're going to talk about sustainable product innovation and the importance of integrating that into your new product development process, how to go about it, and Aaron is actually going to share about some of the success they've had with using this to develop new products and to really integrate it within their process. We actually have another one coming up by Mike Campbell, who works here, and he's going to be talking about building optimization through energy modeling. We've had really good success with that. And then we have one coming up. The next one we'll be doing in the series is going to be about strengthening internal support for sustainability initiatives. That's going to be a lot about employee engagement, and that's on October 9th, so you can register for those. So I want to thank everybody for joining today. I really appreciate your time and attention, and I do appreciate the questions. And also, feel free to email me anytime and let me know different topics you'd like to hear about. And I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar, and I also look forward to seeing you at our seminar on January 28th. Thank you and have a great day.